Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. In today's episode, we are going to be following up from a story from last week regarding an E&Y partner in the UK who told a female trainee something sexually explicit on a ski trip. And as we discussed in that podcast, this partner had, there's this long investigation into it that was pre-pandemic when I guess people were still going on ski trips together. His name is Neil Hutt, and he told a trainee something sexually explicit, and so he has finally resigned. And as you might remember, he was going to keep his job. There was just all these investigations at E&Y by the chartered accountants also, and he was penalized $75,000. But he was allowed to keep his job, and he just had to attend a diversity and inclusiveness training. But I guess the embarrassment was probably too much for him. I don't feel bad for the guy at all because he's a partner and he could have kept his job. I feel bad for the trainee because she has to live with this. I'm sure some people know who she is, and so it's like gonna follow her around. Not only follow her around, but it's also she's gonna have to live with having dealt with this at the beginning of her career, where this guy is probably financially really well off and can afford to retire or do whatever, disappear for a couple of years, and then maybe come back when people don't remember this stuff. Not the NY, but I'm sure that he'll be able to find another job. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he's completely canceled by now, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. But I think the thing to learn from this is that partners are pretty invincible overall. This guy could have kept his job. I'm sure it's just the other partners at E&Y probably pressured him into helping the firm's brand by resigning. But he could have been stubborn and just stayed on. And that just speaks to the partner's power because HR doesn't answer to anybody higher than the partners. So the partners determine what HR can do. So HR can't really fire them. The partners, all the rest of the partners of the firm would have had to do something substantial. And I think this speaks to the fact that they weren't able to do that they were going to let this guy keep his job. And it took him being embarrassed to leave. And I think that's something that Big Four accounting firms, maybe not all of them, maybe some other ones in the UK have a better policy, but E&Y in the UK has to have something better in place because if a partner does this, that means I think there's other ethical issues with them. If you've been a firm long enough and as a partner you think that's appropriate to do that, then I don't think you understand the role of an accountant. You have to be very ethical. And I think especially as an accountant, you have to be ethical at work, and using your work to take advantage of lower level people, to me, that's just not ethical. And that's not somebody that you would want to work at your firm. It doesn't matter how many passive trainings they take. It's not really going to be something done. And if they're cutting corners here, then they're going to be cutting corners anywhere. But E&Y needs to review their policies with regards to partner sexual misconduct. And I think this shines a light on that. I think the right thing happened here with the guy resigning. Maybe there's enough partner pressure, but I think there's still an oversight here. But it's good news to see that he resigned. But if it didn't hit the newspapers, because he resigned right after this news broke, so it wasn't until he faced public embarrassment that he was going to do this. Hopefully he was hoping that nobody would notice, but I think it became probably too unbearable to deal with colleagues and probably clients as well. It's not an easy thing to do. But again, we're not going to feel sorry for him on this podcast. We'll feel sorry for the female trainee. And hopefully this just shows E&Y in the UK and other Big Four accounting firms changes they need to make sure that there are severe consequences for partner misconduct versus slaps on the wrist in the future. But we'll just have to keep an eye on this stuff to see if there are any changes of policy. Hopefully this doesn't happen too much with COVID-19 and working from home policies, but we'll just have to see if there are any changes in Big Four policy. That's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to get future updates and check out the show notes for helpful links. Thanks for listening.